Welcome to Writing Black Joy Season 1. I am Sophia Robinson, and I'm a writing coach, editor, story listener, and the producer of Writing Black Joy, a virtual space that celebrates and centers the voices of Black writers with joyful stories. Here, you'll find my conversations with some of my favorite Black writers and storytellers, learn more about their projects and the joy they are bringing into the world, and find inspiration for your own creative ventures, as well as tips for writing poetry, blogs, creative nonfiction, fiction, plays, and so much more from all types of writers, as well as a sneak peek into writing life. You could even find your next favorite writer, book, poem, play, or blog. And if you are a Black writer who is looking for a coach or an editor to help you bring your joyful story into the world, click on my website below and find out how you can work with me. In the meantime, let's go to today's guest. Hi, everyone. I am back and I have my guest, Ayesis, with me today. And I'm so excited about this conversation. Ayesis is a regular at my Creatives Corner Clubhouse, and she is so many things. I'm going to tell you a little bit about her. She's a master teacher, a multidisciplinary theater artist, and this includes being a fabulous playwright. She's also an educational consultant. She has developed theater arts curriculum for Prince George's County Public Schools, the Maryland Department of Juvenile Services, and many local and regional theater companies. She served as a leader of the Prince George's County Theater Advisory Board, where she developed and facilitated pre-service workshops while mentoring both new and seasoned teachers. Combining her extensive background in theater and education, Ayesis founded Sculpted Clay Productions, where she uses innovative theater-infused residencies and professional development workshops to help schools create trauma-sensitive, social, emotional, focused learning environments for teachers and students. Thanks for joining me, Ayesis. I'm so happy to have you.
Thank you for having me.
Perfect. And of course, to those of you who are following this project along, Ayesis is going to have an excerpt from one of her plays. That's going to be her piece. So there'll be a link to this somewhere on this page. So just look for it. So Ayesis, I would love for you to tell us a little bit about your writing journey. I know you do so many things, so you can tell us about those things too, but I'd love to know a bit about your writing journey and what makes you enjoy being a playwright and being in that process.
Yeah, so the funny thing is I've I've been writing all my life, right?
Mm.
But I feel like I don't feel like I know I just embraced um that term playwright. I just
Mm.
like within the past maybe 2 months actually.
What?
Yeah. Yeah,
How
and
long ago did you write and perform that solo show? I need to know this now because.
so I wrote the solo show in 2018. Okay, and so for those who may not know that's following you, uh, you said earlier, I'm a multidisciplinary theater artist.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I wrote a solo show, and that wasn't supposed to be a solo show. It was supposed to be a form of therapy for me, dealing with secondary traumatic stress as an educator, dealing with just burnout, and it ended up again being a solo show that's been toured all over the place, and even writing that, and that wasn't even my first play that I've written.
No.
Like I wrote a play. My very first play actually was written in elementary school, and I wish I could
Mm-hmm.
find that, but my mom has it in a box somewhere. But
Need to dig for that.
yeah, I want to. But the very first like play that I wrote was called Standing on the Edge, and
Mm-hmm.
this was in 2012, 2011, 2012, and that also toured and got a little bit of success, but I still didn't see myself as a playwright. My background isn't in playwriting, it's in acting, it's in
Mm-hmm.
stagecraft, um, but not playwriting. And so to date though, I've written five plays.
Sounds like a writer to me. But you know what? I think sometimes you know, I think it raises a good point because I always think about, there's a lady who I follow who I'm sure I mentioned in a conversation that I had with another interviewee like a couple of weeks ago, Javesia, and Javesia is definitely going to be joining us. I'm really looking forward to chatting to her. And she has a writing group, and she always asks, like, when did you first feel like a writer? And I always think about that because I think, like, I never considered myself a writer, even though I too have been writing for the longest time. Like, I came across my university yearbook a little while ago, and there was a song in there that it was like a song parody that I'd written that we all performed. But like, to me, that was just playing around and joking around. Like, that wasn't anything serious. And first I was like, oh, I'll feel like a proper writer when I write a book, and then I'll feel like a proper writer when I publish it. And then and I feel sometimes like we're almost the last to know. Like, we're almost the last to embrace that title, because we have this really fixed idea in our mind about what that thing looks like, right?
Absolutely. Because and when you just said that, like, it wasn't until I have a piece that's been a theater wants me to develop it, right? And so that they can, you know, put it in their season. And so they had me write a 10-minute, and it's the one I'm going to share in a little bit.
Yes, which I love. I can't wait to hear it. Hear you read it.
The artistic director approached me before the project, and I was like, yeah, you know, we're looking for playwrights, and, you know, you're a wonderful playwright, because he had seen the solo show. And I'm like, but I'm not a playwright. So
you are, though.
You say, like, you're the last one to know. It's like, okay,
girl, sometimes we are the last to know. You know that. So, well, I'm glad you figured it out just in time for our interview. So yeah, that is perfect. And so then you said you've been writing since you were younger, and you wrote this play in elementary, and you've obviously written other plays, you've written the solo show, you've written other things. Poetry. Tell me, and that's the other thing, like, you also write poetry. So I'm like, you're just so many things. What is it that you love about writing?
You know, depending on when you ask me that question, you'll probably get a different answer.
Tell me what you love about it today.
How I feel about it today is that it's a safe space for me. It's a safe space for me. It's a place where I can put down whatever I need to put down, whatever I want to put down, and it doesn't necessarily have to be ever seen. You know, no one ever has to read it. No one ever, but it's a place where I can kind of take a weight and sit it down. And not even, you know, I journal too, not as much as I should, but or as much as I want.
Oh, folks, I don't journal. So there's never any judgment for anybody who doesn't. Like, this is a huge, one of my other, and she's also going to be a guest, my friend Ali, who actually she's published a book, and she does a lot of journal prompts. She's a proper, she always laughs at me when I say, I hate journaling. So there's never going to be any judgment from me for not journaling. So you carry right on.
So yeah, you know, and I'm not even just in a journal way, but like even with the solo show, with the play that I'm gonna, you know, share, the play that I'm developing right now, A Million Tiny Ways. It's a vessel. Writing is always, you know, is always a vessel for me to kind of release. And whether that release is a heavy release, whether it is, you know, something fun to kind of lose myself in for a while, whatever it is, it's a safe space. It's safe for me.
I love that. And I've got a question for you, because now that you talk about journaling, I just suddenly had this thought that I've never really had before, which is that, you know, and I actually wrote a blog post a while ago about my journaling experiment, because I did a 30-something day journaling experiment sort of last month. And it just occurred to me, like, you know, you and I have talked before about, like, what role does the audience play when you're creating, especially, you know, you being a theater person. And for me, like, writing blogs and books and feeling like the audience, having an audience is kind of part of the process. But I like that you said, nobody has to see it, right? So it's like, you get to choose, you know, there's so many things I've written that nobody has seen. Right. And I actually like that sometimes you write it and sometimes people see it and
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you're like, no, this is just for me. I like that.
Yeah.
It's perfect.
And you know, I think that's also one of the reasons why I was so hesitant to put a label on myself as a writer or as a playwright or whatever, is because in my head I'm thinking, if I'm a playwright, and that means this becomes work. This becomes something that I
Mm.
must commercialize, that I must put out there, that I must share. And no,
No.
it's always going to be mine. It's all just like your writing is always going to be yours, and you
Yes.
choose what you
You
share.
get to see this piece, you don't get to see that piece. And
Right.
it's and also sometimes you can write it for yourself and then you can decide like, you know what, I think somebody else would benefit from this, just like you did with the solo show. And I've done that too, where I've written pieces where it really was just for me. And then, you know, I shared it. There was one piece I wrote ages ago and I wrote it. And even though I did actually put it up on my blog, I have a whole selection of like hidden blog posts. And so I put it up as a hidden blog post and I shared it with a friend of mine. And I was like, what do you think of this? And next thing had been shared like 100 times. And I was like, yeah, you realize I wasn't. But the thing is, I think almost because I'd sort of written it not to share, it was almost more vulnerable in a way. Not that I had written it, if I had written it not to share widely, I'd written it like I could share it with a friend or whatever. It was fine. It was no problem at all. But it just kind of made me think that like sometimes you write something and it's not to share, and then you share it anyway. And those sometimes are the things that I feel like make a really big impact. So I love that you turned that solo show, which was like for personal therapy, into something that has made such an impact on teachers and audiences all over the country. So I absolutely love that. And I'm glad that just for today, you like writing and that's what you like about it. I don't love writing every day. I will not lie to you. So no judgment there at all. Now, as you know, this project is all about joyful stories by Black writers, something that's near and dear to me. And I'm assuming it is to you, or you would have said,
Yes.
no thanks,
Yes.
I think I'll
Yes.
pass.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
So
Yes.
I want you to tell me why you think that's so important to you.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. I feel like, and I hope my answer to this doesn't come off as cliche or said before, but
It's okay.
so often the stories that are written about me, about my people, about people who look like me, um, tell the story through a lens of pain and tragedy, and you know, that we that it almost becomes our identity in literary circles. I mean, not even literary, just in life, right?
In general, yeah.
In
Oh, for
general,
sure.
that it becomes like a part of us. And I was in a theater conference the past 2 days, and one of the keynote speakers, and I'm gonna quote her perfectly. So give me a second. But Lady Dane Figueroa, she's an actress. She's a director, producer, amazing soul. She said, "My pain is not more sacred than my joy."
Oh.
And I said, "Oh, wait a minute.
Wow.
Wait
What?
a minute. My pain is not more sacred than my joy."
Oh.
And that resonated so deeply with my soul. It was like she rang a bell. And that's why it's important. It is important. You know, yes, there have been things, you know, there have been traumas that people have gone through. There have been traumas that our people have gone through. There have been traumas, you know, but that does not define us.
No. And that's part of the reason why I wanted to do this in the first place, because I've always felt that way. And I don't want to diminish the painful experiences that people have had, but like just to, you know, I was having a conversation. I do not know why that does that every single time. Sorry, listeners, my computer does weird things. And I was having this conversation with a friend of mine a couple of days ago, actually, and I was sharing with her some of the posts because obviously with this whole project, I've been creating social media posts and different stuff. And I shared one with her, and she said to me, you know, she read it and she was like, it was just a reminder to her that like she gets to have joy too, because her business is all about transmuting out of painful experiences. And sometimes she feels like she can almost get lost in that. And it's easy to do because, you know, if there's a lot of pain there, it's easy to feel to get lost in it and to not feel as if the joy is sacred as well. And so to me, it's like, you need to focus on that, not because the other stories aren't important, but because these ones are important too. And so I love that quote. Like that is, I'm gonna, so you need to send me the correct spelling of her name because I will be quoting that. That is beautiful. I love that.
I will. I will. She's amazing. I've had the opportunity to work with her on several occasions. She is,
I love that.
but that again, it just like, oh, hits so deeply. And
Mm.
my son is a writer. And actually my husband is too. My husband writes fiction, but he's like an
Woo!
undercover writer. He
Is he
writes
undercover? Yeah, I might have to interview him too. You tell him to look out for my email.
he's been writing his novel for a while now, and it's just amazing. And I've been that voice that's like, okay, you have to finish, you got to get it out, you got to get it out. um but my son kind of took the best of both of our worlds, and he's a screenwriter. He's going to Columbia. He starts
Excellent.
Columbia next month, and his mountain that he stands on, and he has stood on this for the last few years, is that he refuses to write from a place of pain,
Thank you.
from from Black pain, from Indigenous pain. He just refuses to do that, because he was like, in his life, through his family, all he sees is joy. So
Yeah.
he was like, it doesn't make sense to broadcast that. So
Mm.
yeah. Yeah.
I love that. I'm so pleased that he feels that he's grown up in an environment where he gets that feeling, because I love, to me it's and this is something that I spoke to. So I was the first interview for this project, and I was talking to my friend Thea, who's a podcaster, and I was asking her if she'd ever heard Chimamanda Adichie's TED Talk called "The Danger of a Single Story." I don't know if you've ever heard that, but I'm gonna share it on social media soon, so I'll tag you in that post. But that's exactly what it's about. It's about this single narrative. She's Nigerian, mm-hmm. and she talks about how there's this single narrative of like, this is what Africa is like, or this is mm-hmm. what it's like to be X or Y, and people aren't necessarily even aware that they only have this one narrative to sort of anchor a whole group of people towards, whether it's a country, whether it's a group of people that come under a particular ethnicity, whether it's being an artist and being broke, like whatever that is, there's a single story that you have. And I love that, firstly, that his single story is joy. Like, I absolutely love that, because then to me, that's like, there's benefits to that too, but also that he will bring different narratives then to the single story that people might have when it comes to screen, not screens, films and TV and stuff like that. So I cannot wait to see what he does. I love that so much. I should have done a whole family interview with you guys, but anyhow, no problem. We will rectify that soon enough. So I love your sort of views on that. The third question was supposed to be about a quote from someone you admire that represents joy to you, but I feel like we have covered that, and I want you to say that. Let's say the quote again and the lady's name again. I love that.
Yes, Lady Dane Figueroa, mm-hmm. and the quote is, "My pain is not more sacred than my joy."
Oh, it's just giving me goosebumps. I absolutely love that so much.
As soon as she said it, I wrote it all over everywhere on my desk. I'm like scribbling furiously.
It's perfect for this. It's perfect for this. What's been your proudest moment then, since you're not, maybe not embracing the whole screenwriter? Tell me just what's been your proudest moment in terms of your theater career, from childhood onwards.
Well, honestly, I could speak on this as a writer. So there are two that come to mind, but the one I think that sticks out the most to me, um, I don't know if it sticks out the most. I'll give both of them.
Give
Okay.
them both. Give them both. You
So
can.
and they all derive around the solo show. And so when I first wrote it, a good friend of mine who had a theater company, Goldie Patrick is her name, and she had a theater company for Black girls and women. And she knew I was coming out of the classroom, and she was like, "What do you want to do?" And I told her, that I was playing around with the idea of this play, but it wasn't really something that was going to be presented. She was like, "Nope, you're going to present that. Write that." And I'm like, and she was like, "And I have the perfect place." And I'm like, "Oh, okay." And she was like, "I'll send you the information." Well, when she sent me the information, it was a spot at the Kennedy Center in a festival in
Ooh.
Washington, D.C. And I was
What?
like, whoa, oh, okay, okay. And so it was
Nice.
just like this pressure to create what I had already written, which was not supposed to be shared, and then make it into a play, a fully
Hmm.
fledged out play. And so presenting that at the Kennedy Center in front of former students, um, in front of, amongst other people, that made me proud because I felt like, I don't know, I just felt proud to have finished it. But the last time I performed it for public was also in
Hmm.
Washington, D.C. at the Atlas Performing Arts Center. And that one sticks out, and I was most proud because that was in front of a bunch of educators.
Mm.
It wasn't supposed to be for educators, but it ended up being for a lot of educators in the audience. And afterwards, they just came up to me, and a lot of them were in tears. And then at that point, I realized I don't think until that point I realized that that specific piece of writing wasn't just for me.
Mm. Mm.
That there was hope in it that other teachers saw. There was a reflection of their experiences that hadn't been reflected back to them before that. So I was proud to be able to speak to them from an authentic place.
Yeah, and I love that so much. And you know, I there's so I stalk you on Clubhouse. I'm sure you're probably aware of that by now. I'm not the only one as well. Like I have
Don't
another friend, and
stop
he
me.
also stalks you on Clubhouse, so we stalk you together. And I remember hearing you say that. How did you put it? Um, you're always going to be a teacher,
Always.
right? Even though you're no longer in the classroom. And
Mm-hmm.
so I think it's like, it's just a testament to like, I did this thing and I didn't even think it was for anybody, and it's still able to teach and sort of talk to people through that performance and through the play, even though you thought it was only there to teach you something,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so I absolutely love that so much. Yay. I'm curious, what has been the most difficult part of this journey as a writer, as a theater professional?
Oh, that's a double question,
Mm.
because the answer is different. As a
Answer
writer,
them both separately. I'd love to hear them both. Yeah.
yeah. So as a writer, the most difficult is when either there is an emotional block that I can't write through for whatever
Mm-hmm.
reason. Um, Unfortunately, I'm dealing with that right now with the play that I'm developing. There's an emotional block that I won't
We're going to
allow.
have a conversation about that very shortly, but go ahead.
um, and so I stare at the page, I stare at the screen, and um, nothing comes. Of course, that is difficult as a writer. Um, as a theater artist, it's been, barring the last year where we're dealing with dealing with COVID and dealing with the shutdowns and everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Even before then, um, there's a bit of isolation that I wasn't prepared for
Hmm.
when it comes to
Interesting.
being a theater artist or an actor, whether it's film or whatever. you have these amazing experiences with these amazing people and artists, but it's like a flash in the pan and
Mm.
it's over. And then you're alone again auditioning for something else, or in your car
Mm.
driving here, there, for rehearsals for. And so I spent a lot of time alone, whether it was in my car, whether it was in, you know, my rehearsal room, at home, wherever. And I wasn't prepared for that. Coming from the classroom, there was my teacher bestie that was right next door. I was surrounded by students all the time, to the point where, driving home, I have to turn off the radio because I just need silence.
Mm.
But then I was hit with this wall of just, I don't know. So I wasn't prepared for that. And that's the hardest thing, I think, is the isolation that you can feel when you're not actively in a project.
And I think, and like I've said to you before, like I'm a real amateur, like school drama club. A few years ago, we did a play combining the students from the school I went to and some of the alumni. That was really fun. And I
Nice.
think it was fun. What I can say when you talk about the isolation, it's almost like a feast or famine type of thing, because while you're like rehearsing and sort of like getting that thing, you almost feel like these people become your family,
Yes.
right? Like at least that was the feeling that I had. And
Yes.
it was like seeing them every day. And, it was, I don't even know how to explain it, how to
Yeah.
describe it. And then all of a sudden you're up on stage and it's like there are lights in your face and it's like, this is it. And it's all come together. And then like 2 nights later, you're like,
Yeah.
what's going on here? And
Yeah.
that's it, back to reality. Cool. Well, for me, it was back to reality because I was, still going to work and stuff, but like, I never saw some of those people again.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
It's crazy.
it is crazy. It's really, really odd. So I totally understand that. How do you move through writer's block or emotional blocks? Do you have any sort of techniques or things that you've tried?
Yeah. So one of the things that helps is I love to dance.
Mm.
Zumba is my go-to workout,
Nice, Simba.
routines. But so working out, especially to music, especially to loud music. If I can't blast it in my house, then I have my headphones on and I'm blasting it through the headphones to kind of shock my system and into kind of.
Blow out the cobwebs.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But also my husband has been, and my son, but mostly my husband has been a amazing sounding board, right? Because he's so imaginative. Um, a lot of times things will come to me in impressions, right? Like a sound or an image or something. And I'm like, I gotta fit this in here some kind of way. And I will, explain to him what it is. And he's like, wow, that kind of sounds like X, Y, and Z. And it's like,
Mm.
oh, you're right. Oh, wow, that is a good. And then that jump starts it a lot of times. But so between getting the endorphins going with dancing and music, and talking to him, that usually helps. That usually helps.
Nice. I love that you have that. I always say you can never write alone. And I think that's just such a classical example of how sometimes other people can really help you in that process. So yeah, I completely get that. So what would you tell a person who feels like they want to write a play? That's specifically talk about writing a play now. I know you're a poet as well, but like, what would you
Yeah.
tell somebody who wanted to write a play specifically?
So of course there's all this technical things, to know as far as like how to write dialogue, how to write stage directions, and how to not
Mm-hmm.
write in a narrative form. But beyond all of that, beyond all of that, at the core of a play is someone who wants something so bad and is up against what seems like insurmountable odds. Whether it's a comedy, whether it's a drama, tragedy, whatever, it's always that. It's someone who wants something or encounters something and they have to overcome this thing. These obstacles are thrown in their way. And so if you want to write a play, think about something that is personal to you. Think about something that you would like to see, because that's also one of the things that inspire me now to write is, what do I want to see on stage? You know,
Mm.
I'm tired of looking at plays by white men. They don't tell my story.
Nope.
Okay, they're fine, and there's a million gazillion of them. I want to see something that reflects my life, reflects who I am, reflects the people I see in my neighborhood, my family. What does that look like? Um, and start there. Start there. And as Octavia E. Butler, who I absolutely adore.
Love.
Oh my gosh. um, she said something, and I'm gonna butcher her. I'm gonna misquote her so bad. But I think she said something like, you start out writing crap and you think it's good, but then you gradually get better at it. Like, get over the fact that, don't think that what you write on the page is going to be the next Pulitzer or the next great American novel or whatever. No, 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 no.
Not yet.
9 times out of 10 is going to be crap when you first start. And it's okay. It's okay, because you've taken that first step. You know what I'm saying? I this is a quote that I live by now. Start before you're ready. Right?
Oh yeah.
Start before you're ready. Just jump in. Jump.
Yeah.
You can be scared while you're flying, but don't wait because
don't wait until you don't feel scared. And I actually had this conversation with a friend of mine the other day, because she posted this thing on social media that said, like, where in your life do you feel brave? And I was like, feel brave? Never. Like, I'm all about like just pack your fresh pants in your handbag because you're gonna probably need it, type of thing. And she said, but that is brave. And I was like, but it doesn't feel brave. And I think a part of the problem is people think you have to feel brave in order to be brave. Like they want to get that feeling of like, yeah, I'm ready to go before they take the first step. And it's like, you're not going to feel that way before you take the first step. And you may never feel that way. And that's also okay. But you can't let that hold you back from taking that first step. So I think that's really good. One thing I want to ask you about, though, is you talk about like knowing that first, when you start, it's going to be crap. And I think that is something that I struggle with, depending on what I'm writing. Like, I have this thing where I kind of lower the stakes. So, probably I really want to write a book, but I want to write a book, but I'm like, let me start a blog. I write small things and I kind of build up to that thing. But what I have found difficult, especially there's a novel that I've been working on it since last year. I'm still working on it. I thought I was going to finish it in July. I'm not even close to finishing it. And what's hard for me is that it seems so important that I don't want it to be crap. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like that pressure that I put on myself actually means that I'm probably not going to write it at all, or I might not finish it, because I feel like, that book, I've written a few novels and they're like love story, like lessons in love and things like, they can be crap because that doesn't matter. But like, this really matters. I don't want it to be crap. And that sort of pressure, I think it makes it harder for me to kind of go through the motions of just writing it and just doing it and just putting it out there. And I've never really said that to anybody before, because it just like, it almost sounds like, how obnoxious are you thinking that your story is so important? But like, that's how it feels. It feels like it's about, it's supposed to be about these women and, they're superheroes. I won't bore you with the details, but like, when I came with the idea, I was like, this is so important. And it felt so important. Yeah. I didn't want it to be crap.
It is important. But just like anything that you write, your first draft doesn't have to be amazing.
I should know this, right?
It's not going to be amazing. It's not.
Yeah, I should know this. Yeah.
When I taught playwriting in high school, I would just tell them to get to the end and know that what you write is going to be a shadow of what is going to be. What you're trying to do
so
is
true. Get it out of your head.
Right. Get it out of your head, get to the end. And now we can start playing building blocks. Now we can start playing Jenga and taking things out and placing them in other places. And now we can add more, but until then, it stays locked here, and that's not doing anybody any good.
That's true. Very true. And the thing is, I instinctively, I tell that to my clients. Like, I know that for other people, but I realize that sometimes you're doing it yourself and you don't even know. And so I thank you.
Medicine.
I know, physician, heal thyself. Yes. Okay. I thank you for reminding me. I thoroughly appreciate it. I have a kind of random question to ask you. And I just realized I've always wanted to know the answer to this question. When you write a play, because I'm so used to writing narrative, right? Like, do you write it? And I had months ago, I had a friend, she's still my friend, who wanted to write a play. And she was getting very hung up on the structure of it. Like, so much so that she wasn't actually writing, basically. How tell me more about that process. Like, do you kind of have the story all in your mind and you write it as a narrative first, and then you kind of pull out the dialogue? Do you just kind of write and see what, I don't know what happens to you, but my characters talk to me when I'm writing. They talk to me. They're like, no.
I'm not doing that. I'm doing this.
I ain't doing that. This is what I'm doing. Like, they tell me, right? So tell me a bit about that process.
So there hasn't been one play. There's never been a play that I've written the same way twice. So that actually isn't, I don't feel like I'm qualified to give you probably the answer that you're looking for.
No, I actually love that answer, but go ahead.
The solo show started out of like, technically it started out from a letter that I wrote my students, that I, wrote to them. It started out of that, things that they never knew about me. And again, it wasn't ever meant for them to read. It was very, therapeutic, things that they didn't know about me, things that I was dealing with, and what made me do the wrong thing as a teacher at a specific time. Like, so it was kind of that. Standing on the Edge, the first play that I wrote was actually out of old writings when I was a teenager. Like, I found my like journal that had like a bunch of poems, and I realized how angsty I sounded. It was just like full of teenage angst, and oh my God. And then I realized that my students were dealing with the same thing. And so I took some of that poetry, I took some new writings, I workshopped it with some students, and, came up with something that looked very different than those writings that in high school. A Million Tiny Ways was written through tears. Like, no pulling cards. It literally was written through tears, and it was just like line by line. And again, it hasn't,
you haven't finished it. Yeah.
So,
okay. Yeah.
But it was one of those things where I just kind of wrote and didn't know where it was going to go. I was just writing from the heart. I don't think I've ever written a narrative per se, like a short story, and then turned that into a play.
Okay.
But I will say this. One play that I did write, Unbroken, a character kept nagging at me. And I didn't know. And so I started doing some research and ended up writing a play about Chick Webb. He was a drummer during the Renaissance.
Nice.
And not his biography, but he's in it. So it's the biography of a character that I completely made up, but he's in the story. And he kept like bugging me, like in my head, and so I just created from a character.
I love that so much. And I laugh because there is an author that I do like, Neil Gaiman, and he writes, fiction, fantasy, that type of thing. And one of the books that I listened to him, the audiobook, I've listened to it several times. It's like 20 hours long. And he says at the beginning of it that he wanted to write, he's British, okay? So let's start there. And he's like, he wanted to write this novel about coming to America and, you know, taking the train and all this stuff. And he said he thought that by the end of it, that he would, you know, he would be able to tell you how to write a novel. And all he could tell you by the end of it was how to write this novel. And I was like, that is the truth. And I think to me, that is actually one of the hardest things, other hard things about writing this novel that I'm writing. And the hardest things I think about being a writer in general is that just when you think you've got it figured out, you have to realize like you're probably never going to figure it out. And every, like you said, every book may very well be different. And, you know, if you feel like you're going to use a formula, that might work for some people. I mean, like there's a few people I read that, you know, I'm pretty sure that they have a formula that they use.
Right.
But
and you can tell.
Oh, believe me, I can tell. But that's not how it works for me.
Neither.
And it's interesting to hear, like, even people that I really admire say the same thing, and you say the same thing as well. Of course, I really do admire you, which is that, like, all I can tell you by the end of this is how I wrote this. I can't tell you how to write a play or a book or a whatever. Like, all I can tell you is this is how I wrote this. Next, on to the next adventure.
Yeah.
And I absolutely adore that. Speaking of books, what type of things do you like to read, if indeed you have time to read? Because I know everybody doesn't.
Okay, so I have fallen off reading like I need to, but I love fantasy. I love
Me too.
you know, I mentioned Octavia E. Butler and you know sci-fi.
Have you ever read Karen Lord?
No.
She's a Barbadian actually, and she writes sci-fi as well. I think you'd like her stuff if you like sci-fi. So I'm giving everybody listening, putting a recommendation out there, Karen Lord. Look for her.
Awesome.
Good.
I love horror too. I've just started to kind of get into, well, I had just at the beginning of the pandemic started trying to get into like horror and suspense novels.
Wow.
Like cheesy ones, because it's so easy to be cheesy.
You're telling me.
So easy to be cheesy. But there's this, oh my gosh, The Hunger is the name of this book. And of course I can't think of the author's name right now. I'll get it to you. But The Hunger, and it's about westward expansion in North America. And so it was written, you know, during that time, and this group of people go west seeking, you know, their better fortune, and things go crazy quickly. And so it's this suspense, it's got horror in it, and it's very it shocked me, because when I first started reading it, I was like, what is this? What is this? Covered wagons, what is this? But it's pretty good.
Okay, well, I'll file that away. And now that you say that, I've decided I almost feel like I want to make a book list for this project, because everybody I've spoken to has got different books that they like reading, and I think that's an idea that I'm gonna probably have a page just with a book list. So thanks for the idea, Isis. Appreciate it. That is really good. And so this is going to be my last sort of question to you. And then I believe you are going to be reading us an excerpt from A Million Tiny Ways?
A Million Tiny Ways.
Anybody listening to this, I'm probably going to put the audio separate, so you'll just click on the link on the page and you'll find your way to it. But A Million Tiny Ways. But the last thing I want you to do is tell us where we can find you, where we can find, you know, follow you, stalk you on Clubhouse like I do, and tell us what you do out there in the world with your work, because I would love you to share that with our listeners.
Yeah, absolutely. So I am a woman divided. I will say that. And the reason I say that, my company, Sculpted Clay Productions, you kind of spoke about it earlier, does educational consulting through the lens of arts infused work. And so you can find all things Sculpted Clay, Facebook, Instagram, Clubhouse, and the handle is at Sculpted Clay. And then on Twitter, it's just a little different. It's at sculpted_clay. You can catch the website at www.sculptedclayproductions.com. isis.com, written all the way out.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're interested about me as a actress, www.ayesisclay.com. And Isis is spelled Ayesis, clay.com.
Yay. And people, you need to go find her. She's awesome. Tell her I sent you. Tell her. But yeah, I absolutely love that so much. So thank you so much for chatting with me, Isis. I never get tired of talking to you. So I really appreciate it so much. Audience, click on the link and go and listen to Isis reading an excerpt from her play. Thanks. Bye. Thank you for joining us today. You can find out more about our guests in the notes below, and don't forget to hit subscribe to our channel so that you don't miss new episodes when they drop. And if this has inspired you to get your own writing project into the world, click on my website below and learn how you can work with me as a writing coach or an editor. Until next time, I send you big love from a small island.